Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the May board meeting. For those that are utilizing ASL services, today our two interpreters are Felice Shays and Alicia Jones. They will alternate every 20 minutes. In the chat, you will find a link to our CART services and instructions on how to pin their video. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Arva Rice. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the interim chair of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. I would like to call the CCRB's May public board meeting to order. Would the rest of the board members please introduce themselves? And I'm going to start on this end with Frank, please.
Frank Dwyer, Police Commissioner Designee.
Good afternoon, John Siegel, mayoral appointee.
Herman Merritt, City Council Representative from Brooklyn, pronouns he, him.
Jonathan Darsh, Executive Director, pronouns he, him.
Esmeralda Simmons, Public Advocate, appointee, pronoun she, her.
Good evening, Michael Rivadeneira, City Council Designee from the Bronx, pronouns he, him.
Demetrius Carolina, mayoral appointee, he, him.
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Puma, Manhattan representative from the City Council cohort on the board, and I use he, him pronouns.
Thank you. And to those who are joining us online, can we have the board members introduce themselves, please?
Hi, Corrine Irish. I'm a mayoral appointee. I live in Harlem.
Thank you. Is there anyone else joining us on the online?
No.
Are there any changes? I'm asking for a motion to approve the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Any changes or corrections? No? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Carolina, can I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. Thank you very much. As I am sure many of you know, we are quickly approaching the second anniversary of George Floyd's death. The video recording of George Floyd being killed sparked outrage around the world, leading to protests in over 60 countries. While thousands of New Yorkers took to the streets to protest against police brutality, hundreds of people experienced fresh instances of police misconduct. The CCRB was flooded with complaints, receiving over 300 complaints in a 48-hour period. In total, the agency received over 750 complaints that we narrowed down to 321 cases. Investigators were faced with unprecedented challenges while investigating the highest volume of cases the agency has ever received while working remotely for the first time ever. Our investigators worked diligently to collect all possible evidence to thoroughly and fairly investigate each and every complaint, providing the board everything they needed to make a just recommendation to the NYPD. As some of you know, the CCRB's statute of limitations for protest cases without a crime exception passed on May 1st, 2022. And I am pleased to announce that the agency completed 98% of all cases. Out of the 321 cases, the CCRB conducted full investigations for 223 cases and substantiated misconduct in 87 cases. There are only 5 outstanding cases. In the 300 cases we have closed, the CCRB has recommended misconduct against 143 members of service, 88 of whom have been recommended the highest level of discipline, charges, and substantiations. So far, the NYPD has closed cases for 44 officers, imposing no discipline for 23 officers, a lesser discipline for 7 officers, and adopting the CCRB's recommendations for 10 officers. 3 officers retired without discipline, and 1 was disciplined prior to the CCRB recommendation. 78 cases should be sent to the Administrative Prosecution Unit. The agency learned a great deal from these investigations, and we will release a comprehensive report this summer detailing our key takeaways. I look forward to working with the NYPD and Commissioner Sewell to increase NYPD adoption of CCRB recommendations and improve safety, fairness, and accountability throughout our city. We will now hear from our Executive Director, John Darsh. John?
Thank you, Chair Rice. Last month, I updated everyone on the current status of the CCRB case involving Officer Wayne Isaacs after his lawyer requested that Commissioner Sewell use her power under Provision 2 of the 2012 MOU that created the APU to retain the case and stop the CCRB's prosecution. Since then, Commissioner Sewell denied this request, ensuring the CCRB can continue with its prosecution of police officer Isaacs. Separately, the CCRB moved to unseal the criminal case that resulted from this incident. The agency continues to wait on this ruling before we can schedule the disciplinary trial. The agency is eager to move forward with this case as Mr. Small's family's wait for accountability has almost reached 6 years. The agency hopes to have an answer from the court soon. While Chair Rice gave an update on where the CCRB is currently on the protest cases, I want to reiterate that the agency plans to release a protest report in the coming months that will detail the lessons that the agency learned from the protest investigations. Currently, our office is open for walk-in complaints, but it is also possible to file complaints online at nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. That's nyc.gov/CCRB COMPLANT, or by telephone by calling 311 or 1-800-341-2272. If there are members of the public here today who also would like to file complaints, we have investigators Chris Olmsted and David Wall with us today. Just some ground rules for this afternoon. If you are here and wish to speak, please sign up with a member of our staff. If you are online and wish to speak, please use the raise the hand feature, and we will make sure you're called upon to make a comment. And we're asking that comments be capped at 4 minutes. I want to thank the staff for their hard work, and thanks again to the members of the public for participating in our meeting.
John. Board members, do you have any questions of our Executive Director? Yes, please.
Regard to the figures that were given about the protest cases, do you know whether the CCRB recommended discipline in any of those cases deviated from the recommendations set forth in the matrix, or the CCRB discipline recommendations all comply with the matrix of the guidelines?
About the week of that, we complied with the matrix and all those citizens, but I would double check and make sure there's a full report to the board.
Any other questions?
Mr. Darsh, do you have any, did we get any explanation for the cases where the NYPD did not take action with regards to the protest, the recommendations in the protest cases that they did not impose discipline?
We had been following the statutory mandated requirement that they inform us from the CCRB's recommendations.
Excuse me, it's very difficult to hear Mr. Darcy.
The CCRB, the NYPD has been complying with the statutory requirement that the department inform the CCRB if they're not imposing the discipline recommended by this agency. The CCRB has been posting that correspondence online, as has the NYPD.
For Executive Director Darsh, on the number of cases that were sent to the APU of the protest cases, I heard 78 was the number cited. What is the status of those now, in the APU. I know that charges have to be served. I know the APU process, kind of has its own set of steps. Could you shed more light on those?
So it's too early to really sort out exactly where the cases stand right now, but I look forward to reporting on that in the future.
Questions from our board? The questions for Executive Director? Anything online? Okay. If nothing else, then I'm going to ask for a presentation from our Director of Outreach, Shahai Rose.
Hello, good afternoon. Bear with me for one moment, Chair Rice, while I share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
You see your screen.
Not yet.
You on the screen.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Rice, and thank you all for attending. I'm Jahai Rose, the Director of Outreach for the CCRB. I go by he, him pronouns. As you may know, the Civilian Complaint Review Board is the nation's largest independent oversight entity over the largest police force in the country. The CCRB investigates, mediates, and prosecutes complaints of misconduct made against members of the NYPD. The agency is governed by a 15-member board. You've met many of the board members on this call. There's 5 that are appointed by the New York City Mayor, 5 that are appointed by the New York City Council, 3 are designated by the Police Commissioner, 1 is appointed by the Public Advocate, and the chair is jointly appointed by the Mayor and the City Council. The CCRB investigates claims of misconduct. We have a jurisdiction. The acronym FADO, F-A-D-O, is a helpful reminder. That stands for force, abuse of authority, discourtesy, and offensive language. Just to give you a little bit of information regarding the Right to Know Act. The Right to Know Act was a law that went into effect in October of 2018. This relates to stop and frisk encounters, sobriety checks, and additional encounters with police officers. Where it relates, the officer, depending on the circumstances, is required to identify themselves by providing their name and other identifying information such as rank, command, and shield number. With some exceptions, officers should explain the purpose of the interaction. Officers should inform someone of their right to say no when asking for consent to search their person, property, vehicle, or home. And last but not least, should offer a business card with the officer's information, which explains explains how an individual can make a comment and or complaint about the interaction with them and that officer or any other officer. And civilians can request this business card in all encounters and all interactions. This is a copy of what the business card looks like. There are a few ways to contact the Civilian Complaint Review Board, as previously mentioned by Executive Director Darsh. Some simple ways are by utilizing our website, nyc.gov/CCRB complaint. This information is also in the chat. You could also call the CCRB's hotline at 1-800-341-CCRB or 1-800-341-2272. If you see footage of misconduct on social media or in the news, you can file a complaint even if you were not there in person. You can feel free to tag the CCRB on social media at CCRB_NYC. A couple of additional ways to file a complaint with the CCRB by calling 311. You can visit the CCRB at our headquarters at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor. You could also direct message the CCRB on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And the common the handle at CCRB_NYC. You also send a letter to the CCRB at 100 Church Street, New York, New York, zip code 10007. You could also file a complaint. You can also file a complaint at your local police precinct. It does not have to be the precinct where the encounter took place. Police officers are required to accept CCRB complaints at any precinct. And officers, you can also request a complaint form with a postage-free envelope. A couple of additional ways to file a complaint with the CCRB by calling 311. You can visit the CCRB at our headquarters at 100 Church Street on the 10th floor. You could also visit the CCRB at our headquarters at 100 Church Street, New York, New York, zip code 10007. You could also file a complaint at your local police precinct. And officers, you can also request a complaint form with a postage-free envelope. Now, the CCRB is also hiring. The CCRB is also hiring. The HC is hiring for level 1 investigators, outreach, and additional positions within the Civilian Complaint Review Board. If you are interested in working with us, feel free to check out our open positions at CCRB at NYC, search for CCRB at nyc.gov/jobs. Alternatively, if you don't see the role posted or you have questions regarding the interview process or the application process, feel free to email careers@ccrb.nyc.gov. This information will also be shared in the chat. And lastly, if you would like to request a outreach presentation for your neighborhood, for your neighbors, for any type of organization, then feel free to reach out to the Civilian Complaint Review Board's outreach unit at outreach@ccrb.nyc.gov. Feel free to also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you very much, Chair.
Does anyone have any questions of these videos?
Mr. Rose, are we still having mobile units with the increase of the COVID virus? Are they still going to boroughs?
The outreach unit is still in the boroughs doing in-person presentations, yes.
Thank you.
We will now enter the public comment portion of the meeting. If you are interested in making a public comment, please line up behind the podium if you are joining us in person, or use the raise your hand feature if you are joining us virtually, and we will go in the order in which those hands are presented. Please keep your comments to 4 minutes. Yahira, would you please call on the first person?
Thank you, Chair. As we wait for folks to line up behind the podium, Soren, can you please upgrade Michael Myers? And while we're bringing him up, I would like to thank New York State Senator Brad Hoylman's office, Congressmember Grace Ming's office, the Queens DA and Manhattan DA's offices, and also the Seattle Police Commission for attending today. Michael?
Can you hear me?
Yes, and if you would like, you can turn on your video.
I have my video on. I thought I did. I'm Michael Myers. I'm the president of the New York Civil Rights Coalition. I have a couple of questions. Number one, at the last meeting, I sent an email to the executive director and several members of the board requesting answers to some basic questions. I never got even acknowledgement from anybody. That means the executive director or the board members to those questions. Simple courtesy, it seems to me. I should get acknowledgement of at least of the questions I put to you in writing and sent to you by email. Secondly, I suggest that we have a public session of the CCRB with the police commissioner so that the public can actually listen in on the discussion between the CCRB members and the new police commissioner, because she has to be held accountable and she has to report to the public about the inaction that we've heard in terms of police department acting or not acting on complaints substantiated by the CCRB. Finally, I have a problem with your rules changes. You keep changing these rules down to 2 minutes for public presentation and then change it to 4 minutes. But there is no public accountability. There's no report to the public about the proposed rules change. So we don't have an opportunity to even comment on your proposed rules, changes in the rules. And I think that's improper. And unless you have something in writing that says this is the new rule that was formally adopted by the board itself, not by the executive director or the executive director's assistant, or not by one member of the board, You got to have a process for having rules before the public. And finally, I want to say that the time is past for the executive director's reports to come out the same day of the meeting. You have to give the public an opportunity to evaluate, to read, and to, yes, question and criticize the monthly reports of the executive director. They should not be coming out the same day of the meeting.
So much. You brought up 4 different points. I don't know if you want to take them all at one time or if you want to take them each, but I wanted to acknowledge the fact that I did receive your email while I was traveling internationally, and so my apologies for not getting back to you. And you're right, you do deserve a response, and so I did want to publicly acknowledge that I did receive it and do apologize for not getting back to you.
So to also apologize because I was recipient of the email and I should have responded, and it was and I will get you an answer to those questions by tomorrow. There's no excuse for it. With regard to the when my reports are posted online, I think it's a good point. I'm going to talk to staff about seeing how much in advance we can get them posted online. At least 48 hours would seem to make sense rather than the same day. And I'll talk to the team about getting that done. With regard to the time limits on public comment, I understand what Mr. Myers is saying about the requirement that our rules be changed through the rulemaking process. I did not think that the setting the length of time for public comment rose to the level of needing to go through the rulemaking process. I will check with the general counsel and report back to the board next week.
Question or suggestion that Mr. Myers made was about having a public session with that. And I did not know to the that's possible, so we want to do that.
And I don't know if it's possible, so I think they'll have to look into it.
Of course it's possible.
Are you there?
Hi, yes. Next we'll be hearing from Helene Red, joining us virtually.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Helene Red. I'm co-chair of the Veterans Committee on Community Board 7. I'm new to all this and I'm listening to people, and I heard of the CCRB, and I want to thank you for having allowing us to come in. But I have a question. I heard one of the panelists said, I don't know if his name was Jahai, whatever his name was, that complaints, that police officers, precincts take complaints for the CCR. They should take a, do you think they are going to give the complaint in? I need to know that question, because they're police officers, and at the end of the day, they're going to protect their police officers. So if I go in there with a complaint, you actually think they're going to give that complaint in?
Verified. So you heard from Jahai Rose, and he's a staff person here at the CCRB, and he's the director of outreach. I'm going to have our executive director respond to the question.
So Ms. Red, thank you very much for that question. It is a concern that when people make complaints, they are forwarded to the agency, but we do regularly get complaints that are filed with the department forwarded to the CCRB. And that's something I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I will at next month's public meeting bring those numbers so that you can have them.
And I have one more question. with the handling of the Floyd case, right? That came to, when it came to the CCRB, how was that handled? How do you, if I complain about a police officer, right, doing something or whatever, like the George put, how is that handled? Do it got to go through channels of chains of command, or it just sits there and they say, oh well, complaint come in? How do y'all review these complaints? Because see, I'm new, so I would like to know that. I'm new to all of this, so I would like to know, how do it go through chain of command? Do it sit there? Do a person review it automatically? How does that go?
The financial. Ms. Red, the CCRB has jurisdiction over complaints against sworn members of the NYPD. So the first thing that we do when we get a complaint is we look to make sure that the complaint is actually against a member of the NYPD. Once we establish that, we try and determine whether or not the officer was on duty, or, should I take off my mask? Can you all hear me? So whether the officer was on duty, or if they were off duty, they invoke their authority as a police officer. The next step is we begin collecting as much information as we can about the case, if it is in our jurisdiction. If the case was outside of our jurisdiction, we refer it to the appropriate agency, the appropriate entity to investigate the complaint. But if it is against a member of the NYPD who is either on duty or invoked their authority as a police officer, we speak to as many civilians, both the people who filed the complaint and other alleged victims and witnesses to the incident. We collect as much paperwork as we can on the incident, both NYPD paperwork, medical records, surveillance video, cell phone video, body-worn camera footage from the police department, and we try and assemble as much evidence as we can before we reach the penultimate step in our investigation, which is interviewing members of service to determine what happened in a case.
Last question.
Once the
I'm sorry. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Collected all that evidence, their next step is to create a closing report in which they marshal the evidence and make recommendations to the board about what the board should do. But the board, which can meet as a whole, but generally meets in panels of 3, reviews that evidence, reviews the closing report, and then they make the final determination about whether or not to substantiate misconduct. And if the board substantiates misconduct, it also makes a recommendation for the level of discipline that should be imposed on that police officer. And since last year, the board has been basing those discipline recommendations on the NYPD's new discipline matrix.
I have just one last question, because like I said, I'm new to this. How many cases have you guys had that resulted in dismissal of a police officer? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. And yes, Ms. Red. So I believe that there's at least one, but maybe 2 members of service who have been fired from the police department based on a CCRB complaint. But it is the CCRB can only recommend discipline when it substantiates misconduct. The police commissioner is the final arbiter in all matters of police discipline.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll be hearing from Nicolyn Plummer. Hi, Nicolyn.
I'll need you to mute.
And Nicolin, you can turn on your video. So Nicolin, while we sort that technicality out, Chair, we have someone from the public joining us in person, Ms. Jennings, that will be addressing the board. Nicolin, I'll send you a text on how to turn on your video. And Chair, while Ms. Jennings is walking over, we're joined by Board Member Freeman.
You didn't know about that. If we can have Mr. Freeman, if you can introduce yourselves, we've been joined by another member of our board.
Designate.
Mr. Freeman, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Willie Freeman. I'm the Police Commissioner Designee. Are you here on me?
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I'm joined by somebody in the room who has a question for us. If you want to approach the podium, please. Mike Blatter? Okay, right here, Mr. Jennings.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? All right. I know you don't handle stalking cases because I tried to reach out to Mr. Darsh many years. But on May 11, 2006 is the official start date of this day.
Introduce yourself.
Miss Jennings, Jenning. And I tried to reach you. I tried to reach, I don't know how many different people I probably tried to reach to no avail. It's a stalking issue. Everybody knows that. It started May 11, 2006. Unfortunately, CCRB doesn't handle it here. It's gotten to the point now that I've told Mr. Darsh years ago I feared for my life and safety, but I'll do it in a couple of minutes. Typical day. Friday, I was out doing my letters with Mr. Darsh had seen. And at 42nd Street, booth R145, around 9:30, I see three officers, one in a white hood. His name is Blackman. I asked, could you please put on your body cams? They don't do that. I hobbled downstairs. It's around 9:30. And at the cameras, because I stay at the camera. You always notice me at the camera. Mobs came into me. Just came into me because that's what they do. Under the camera. A man came to me kind of close. And I don't know if I put my hand at him first, but I remember him pushing. Not hurting me, but just pushing at me. After he did it, there was some cursing out by me and him. He sat on a bench because they can just act like they don't have a clue. I then tried to call task force because, I write everything down. Many times, but my phone is unfortunately rerouted my calls along with my computer. It was a K4135, 10 p.m. I guess that's 311. Many calls to task force. Okay, now on Monday, I went to task force at 42nd Street. Turns out that they don't have anything to do with this. I was given a runaround, which I am. When I went in there and spoke to KHAN about it, badge 15463, I showed him some information. That's all right. He acted like he didn't have a clue about me being stalked. But I do one thing for 15 years, watch who's near me. When it started, I'd watch the unmarked follow me because you could tell they were darked out brides, you could tell. And I'd watch as MTA, Union 100 MTA, give me up to every corner, 15 years. The amount of complaints that are in this diary that then go to the mayor, to the governor, Mr. Darsh knows, they go to the White House. Every time I go anywhere, it goes here. It's my diary. And the letters have gone there since 2009. They go at every bus and train camera. Top of the letter says, in case anything happens to me. Okay, so went to task force.
You're aware that the CCRB does not.
I understand, but I'm just enlightening everybody because I understand. I'm just enlightening you on a situation that I know you're well aware of. But I asked, could someone, I think I did ask, at one police plaza, maybe, not to a wonderful staffer, but to someone up the top, because I just watched the police. When I went into the task force, it was shocking. The creeping around, and I was supposed to get they filed out like a form, or send somewhere, and they said to pick it up at the 10th precinct. I spoke to Taylor, his name, showed him the letters, and we had a moment of speaking. Now today I call, run around again, all sort of people, different people. Nobody seemed to get the complaint, have any information about it, no nothing. And that has been now 15 years. May 11, 2006. All the complaints, the MTA, that then go to everybody. And if you checked out the complaints, you would see, well, she's there at booth R145. Yes, she's there today at booth R331 as transit 1285 pull up to something. As many officers are there as I'm standing again at the cameras at the booth. And I'm looking at the cameras, and that's where I make my calls at. When I call, I know, but I want to know who here could help me to speak to someone at one police plaza. Or the mayor's office. I don't, because of course I did try to reach out to de Blasio many, many times. When I saw the former Governor Patterson on the last year Obama was in office, I said to him, my name is Miss Jennings, and to your last day, I have reached out to you. Do you remember Miss Kate, Larry along said here? I said, this is a stalking issue. He seemed to be, because, he's blind, somewhat like taken back. Like he had no idea that I had been reaching out to him for X amount of years. So I'm just trying to figure out, maybe someone here could help me to speak to someone in one police plaza. We have a new person there, Sewell, or maybe Eric Adams, which I did reach out to him 4 or 5 years ago when Lori Plumbo had her Prince, yeah. I reached out to her. She had a bullying event. Didn't face her. And I reached out to the Adams. Nothing. Now he's the mayor. But I've gone through Bloomberg, de Blasio, now Adams, which is former police. So if someone can help me out to what I just said, to speak to someone, at one police plaza or the wonderful mayor, the governor that doesn't face, and go somewhere. Because I know you don't cover stalking. Mm-hmm. But I know people somewhere. And it's too many years of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
For my life and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings, for your comments. Yahara, may I ask who's next on our list?
Next, we'll be hearing from Mulaney Wilkerson, followed by Christopher Worth. And as we're upgrading Mulaney Wilkerson, Chair, we are joined by Board Member Bond.
Yes.
Mulaney Wilkerson, can you hear us?
After the board member, so Mr. Wilkerson, been upgraded to speak.
Hello. Hello. I was unable to unmute my audio. This is Melanie Wilkerson on the stage. Can you all hear me?
We can see and hear you, Ms. Wilkerson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melanie Wilkerson. I work for the Center for Court Innovation at our Staten Island Justice Center site. I am familiar with a few of you on the call and have been a part of these meetings over the past year or so myself. They have been very informative. And so I suppose today, upon, hearing some of the latest statistics as it relates to officer complaints, in my reflection, I was particularly jolted today because when I heard the statistic laid out of the number of substantiated complaints and then a review of the NYPD's resulting action following the CCRB's recommendations, I was taken aback by the kind of stark disparity there. And so I wanted to propose this question to the panel just as a reflection as someone that is grounded in the justice reform landscape and, has certainly recommended clients to take advantage of the CCRB's existence as an entity to move forward their complaints. I hate to pose this kind of question, but I feel like it must be asked. Reflecting on these statistics, how does the CCRB currently feel about its efficacy as an agency to be able to influence accountability that the NYPD would hold against officers with substantiated complaints?
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I certainly understand your question. I'm going to ask our executive director to take that first and to see if any other members of the panel wanted to respond as well.
So I think when you look at the history of this agency, the strength of the agency has increased over time. And the amount of discipline that is imposed on police officers as a result of CCRB complaints has increased over time. And it is still too soon to have a full picture of what happened in the protest cases because so many of them were newly closed and we just don't have a full picture. But if you look at what has happened in this city over the years and the amount of discipline that resulted from CCRB complaints historically, I think we are making progress towards being an effective oversight tool in this city.
Thank you, Ms. Williamson, for raising the issue. When I first joined this board, there was one thing I said to the then chair, is that I would like us to strive to get power to actually implement our recommended discipline, rather than simply recommending them to the police department, which in the past has done very substantially less discipline than what we have imposed. While we are moving in that direction, every year we seem to be moving closer to that direction. But I'm glad that you recognize that we're putting out a lot of effort and making sure that everybody knows what we find is going on with the police department, or at least with the officers that have misacted. And sometimes that's falling on deaf ears. But the good part is we're putting the facts out there. Thank you. Pay close attention. We're trying to move the line here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking the tough question. We appreciate it.
I would add that I do think, to your question, it does impact our efficacy. And I think that we have to be more vocal about the fact that our recommendations are sitting there without a ultimate determination. And I think that we have to be evaluating the decisions not to prosecute, and we have to be more transparent about and summarizing the reasons why that's happening and what we're getting from the police department as to why that's not happening. And I think our agency is about accountability, and we have to press for accountability.
Thank you. Any other comments? Just want to reiterate again what we heard from our executive director is that this story is still one that is unfolding, and we will be releasing a report later on in the next couple of months talking about the totality because this process is still in place, and also providing some recommendations and learnings from going through this process. Yahaira, who's next up?
Chair, sorry to interrupt. This is Erica Bond. I just wanted to add one comment here.
Can you please introduce yourself and then ask your question?
Sure, and apologies to all that I joined a little bit late today. My name's Erica Bond. I'm a mayoral appointee. Again, want to thank the speaker for her question. One thing that I just want to note in looking at some of these protest cases, I think it's expected that there isn't always going to be agreement between the board and the department on the level of discipline that needs to be imposed, but I will just say I am troubled by the number of cases where we recommended fairly significant discipline, command discipline A's or B's, as well as charges where no discipline at all was imposed. And so I just want to flag that because I do think that that's a conversation we need to be having with the department about why there's such a discrepancy between kind of what we're seeing and the ultimate outcomes. So again, I thank the speaker for raising this question about accountability because I do think that this is something that we need to continue to press on. I appreciate the executive director's comments that the story is not complete yet in terms of the ultimate outcomes for all these cases, but even in looking at the ones where decisions have been made, there is a significant difference, and it's not just about the level of discipline, it's about whether discipline should be imposed at all. Thank you.
Point well taken. Is there anyone else before I move on to the next question? Now, Yahaira, who is next on the list.
Next, we'll be hearing from Christopher Worth.
Hi. I just have two questions, kind of two separate areas. One, I'm just hoping to clarify. You said that I believe 87 cases were substantiated in the protest cases out of 321. I just wanted to confirm that and ask if you can tell me how many of those cases were closed because the officer couldn't be identified. And then my second question is about the disciplinary matrix. In the last board meeting last month, Mr. Darcy said that you had been meeting with the NYPD on changes to the matrix, and I'm curious whether or not you have had further meetings since the last board meeting and whether or not you can update us on the outcome or the development of those changes.
Mr. Worth, I'm going to take the first part of your first question, hand it over to our executive director, and then I will take the second question on comments with the NYPD on the discipline matrix. So what I said in the opening comments was out of the 321 cases that the CCRB has conducted full investigations for 223 cases and substantiated misconduct in 87 cases, and that there are 5 currently outstanding. And I'm going to let our executive director, I'm not sure if he has information in front of him in terms of how many had officers who are unidentified in those cases, which was the question.
So there were 59 cases in which officers were unidentified out of the 223 full investigations.
And then your second question was about the discipline matrix. And so we have started conversations, myself and the CCRB staff, directly with NYPD staff in regards to the discipline matrix. They're just beginning, and we'll be doing right now to begin meetings twice a month and then going into monthly meetings in order that we can figure out a process that makes sense for us to both review the discipline matrix and also to develop more streamlined processes as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yahaira, who's next on the list?
That concludes our our participants virtually. Nicolyn had accidentally raised her hand. But Chair, if anyone from in person joining us would like to say anything, please line up behind the podium.
One. Okay. I just wanted to ask you all, well, Ms. Rice, in the release that you sent out today, you said there were numerous roadblocks, and despite those roadblocks, your investigation managed to complete 179 full of investigations. What were those roadblocks that you encountered?
COVID. And so for the first time, staff members were working out of the office and having to conduct those interviews virtually. There were some challenges with getting access to the members of service. And so that was one of the challenge, the roadblocks that were there. It was oftentimes a chaotic environment. And so they're looking at body-worn camera footage, also looking at extensive interviews, both of the body-worn camera footage as well as civilians who had submitted documentation. So it was just the largest number of cases that came up at a time when the staff was not in the office. And so that's part of the challenge that was there.
Got it.
Did you want to add?
So one of the, in addition to all the challenges investigating all the protest cases, there were some challenges specifically around identifying officers from these complaints due to failure to follow proper protocols when assigning arrests or summonses, officers covering their names in shield, officers wearing protective equipment that the shield numbers on the protective equipment did not correspond to the officer, the lack of proper use of body-worn cameras, and finally, incomplete and severely delayed paper.
And have any of you received a response from the NYPD when coming forth with this report saying that there were a lot of issues when it comes to following proper protocol? Have they responded in any way?
I have not received this.
Is that something that you plan to bring up with them when you do discuss the recommendations?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the formal report has not been released. Okay. And we have, as I mentioned, we've had already had a meeting with the police commissioner as well as with her chief, and are planning on doing ongoing meetings with them in order to be able to talk about these issues, but the report has not formally been released.
Got it. And
the preliminary numbers.
Okay, wonderful. And in terms of the recommendations, what do you anticipate those to be when you do submit this formal report?
It's too soon to have a recommendation.
But probably consisting of something along the lines of following proper protocol, I'm assuming. Okay, and just to clarify, I know you just said that out of the 321 cases, misconduct was substantiated in 87. I'm just seeing a discrepancy in the release that was sent today. It said there were 319 complaints. Thus far, 269 have been closed, resulting in 187 substantiated allegations. So are these two separate things?
We'll check the numbers in the release.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I ask you to please stay in touch with us regarding your inquiries, because as we have already stated, the report has not been published as yet. We would appreciate if you already know you have questions to give us the questions so we can answer.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberg. Is there anyone else in the room?
Hello. My name's Liam Quigley. I have a couple questions. The first is, Mr. Darsh, you mentioned that there were at least one, maybe two members of the service separated from NYPD as a result of CCRB complaints. Is it Pantaleo and one other person?
Yes.
Okay. So that's two for the duration of the existence of CCRB?
As far as I'm aware.
Okay. And on page 20, I'm looking at figure 27, which is disposition of untruthful statements. false and misleading. Is there a reason those aren't listed on the allegations for April 2022 in that appendix? Okay. And is there anything that prevents CCRB from including the names of officers in that table that starts on page 25?
I'm not aware of anything.
Is that something that could be looked at to list the names of, if an allegation was substantiated in the monthly report, to include the name of the officer involved in those allegations?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can also find that information online.
Where would one find that?
At our website, we have the MOS. You know what? I'll check on that. It's a good question. We should be able to make that.
Okay. And the last thing is, oh, so for this table that I mentioned on page 20, this is all just last month. False official statement, misleading official statement, 17 on each would be just April 2022.
That is my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that we have in the room that has a question? Do we have any old business to come before the board? Any old business to come before the board? Okay. Do we have any new business to come before the board? New business? Okay. Hearing none, I am going to move now that we break into executive session. The agenda for the executive session is the board will receive an update from the general counsel, and the executive director will discuss the following items: update on full board case, scheduling issues for panels, update on pending personnel actions, reminder on COIB filing deadline, so the Conflict of Interest Board's filing deadline. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Do I have a second? Second. All right. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good night.